Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here at NarraScope again. This is one of the highlights of my year, honestly. Um, so this talk is going to be a bit of a smorgasbord of a lot of things that appear on my Substack newsletter, which is designed to be tips and tricks for narrative designers to kind of navigate their career, which can be very daunting at the moment. My name is Rose. I work as a narrative designer at Scopely, working on an upcoming AAA game. And of course, I also put out Narrative News, which is my bi-monthly newsletter. And can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up? Okay, cool. So to introduce myself to you, this is me in my career. Wait, can everybody... Where's yeah.
Oh.
I was like, I think I am looking at that. Okay, just one moment. We're gonna put the presentation on the screen for the people in the room. But in the meantime, I will also talk. No, it's okay. Okay, everybody, we're just having a little technical hiccup. But I was just introducing myself, and when the image actually comes up on the screen, it'll show this timeline of my career. And the main point of it is that it's very messy. There are a lot of setbacks. There's, a kind of missing era. What was I doing in 2014? Nobody knows. So there's a lot of, but I think that most people's careers look like this. And that's what I'm trying to reassure people with, is that it's very rare to just go to school, get your degree, and hop right into a stable job for the next 20 years, especially now. And yeah, there's lots to navigate. I'm trying to think if I should go to the next one. Not yet. Maybe. Okay, cool. All right, well, I'm going to keep going, but then also I'll go back and show you the slides that I made, because I spent a lot of time on that timeline. So the very first thing, I'm going to kind of go in chronological order and dip into a lot of different topics. The very first thing is goal setting. And this applies wherever you are in your career. Some of you might really enjoy this process already, and some of you might not. I know a lot of people who don't find it particularly fun to plan out their future meticulously. But I promise you, it can be fun. Put on some music, pour yourself a glass of wine, and just sort of vibe out thinking about the potential of the future. I have a lot of cat gifts coming up here, so get ready. But yeah, some of the good questions to think about, and really getting specific is very helpful, is, do you want to do an MFA or go straight to work? Are you more interested in indie or AAA? Are you okay with being a freelancer, or do you really want a single employer? And there we go, we're back. Yay! Okay, guys, I'm going back. All right. So yes, again, the timeline. You can see I was a journalism school dropout. I started a business that failed. I had that mysterious gap in my resume. I was a blogger for tech publications, career change. Finally got my degree after going part-time for a long time. Content design, layoff. Narrative design, layoff. And then to where I am now. So lots of bumps in the road, but at a certain point, it does begin to flow and gel, even with the tumultuousness of the industry. And this is just a few of the things that we're going to be going through. All right, so back to the goal setting discussion. it's really good to sort of plan out these things because you can angle towards them and really feed into what you're good at. So in which country do you want to work? Do you have a dream studio? Do you want to sort of stay writing for the rest of your career, or do you want to get into leadership, or do you want to teach potentially? So these are really good things to ask because then you can plan out the previous steps that you'll need to take. Well, if I need to get an MFA, then I have to do another couple of courses before I do that, or whatever, that kind of thing. So jumping into one of the first questions from the goal setting area, school for video games. So this is kind of something that I mulled over a lot. And I really didn't know whether to, NYU, a great program. And I thought that would be so amazing to do. But the sticker price really shocked me. And ultimately, for my decision, I decided to try my hardest to get into the industry without the MFA program, but that's not for everybody. So I do have an article on Narrative News with a bunch of different responses from different people in the industry, including JD Calvalli, who is running this conference. And they all had different things to say about their experience. So JD, who went to the NYU program, said that, it made him more engaged and intentional creator. It gave him the opportunity to discover his love of teaching. So that's a huge positive. Valencia Coleman, who also went through an MFA, said it's really mostly just for people who are interested in pursuing that academic path, or you just love, that niche subject. But there are also many like me who had a burning desire to write. This is Andy Ewington, had to do it the hard way and learn around the job. And he did so, and he's now very successful in his career. And then Barbara Kuchik says, I would say that a degree can be helpful, but it's just a small part of the work that you'll need to do to put in before your resume is strong enough to be noticeable to recruiters. I think that's ultimately the truth of the matter. These programs can be really, really wonderful and enriching, but they're not necessarily going to get you a job. So if that's what you're going to school for, then maybe reevaluate that. But they could get you a job in teaching for sure. And if that's something, the stability of that then intrigues you, that's why you would probably want to pursue it. So, and then indie versus AAA, again, looking more into depth into some of those questions. So as a narrative designer, you're probably going to have to do both indie and AAA work at some point in your career. So I wouldn't worry too much about deciding on one or the other. You'll probably do both. But there are definitely pros and cons to both. And having worked on both, I can kind of lay them out here. At AAA pros, obviously better salary. That is a pro in this world. Big IPs that you can work with often come with AAAs. If you really like doing that kind of work, and you maybe have done a lot of fan fiction, that's kind of a fun part of it. And coworkers who you get starstruck by, like I had a coworker who made the horse in Red Dead Redemption 2. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. Cons, there are a lot of cons. It's really bureaucratic and political, especially if the studio is really big, like 300 plus. You're going to have to start doing some Game of Thrones stuff, and it's kind of non-negotiable. And I don't like Game of Thrones stuff, but it is what it is. There's cancellations and layoffs, big projects that you've worked on for years that go into the dumpster, and you are not to ever see them again. And you may not even be able to save your work from them. So that can be a real experience in kind of like a Zen garden. You just have to smush the sand over and let it go. And a lack of creative license. You have to go with the tone and the style of what your creative leadership has decided. So it's much more about following that guideline and being part of a team than making your own rules. And indie stuff, that's the huge benefit is creative freedom, especially if you're doing solo stuff. It's creative freedom is a drug. Like, it's just so fun. Ownership, including maybe even financial ownership of what you create, and a sort of closer choice of collaborators or lack thereof, again, if you want to go solo development route. But the cons is that funding is really, really tough to come by, especially right now. It requires really intense long-term commitment. You have to choose every day for like 6 years. You know, I have a friend, Sam Eng, who made Skate Story. It took him 6 years of going to a coffee shop every day. The coffee shop wasn't the hard part, I assume, but it was more so having the like drive and the nerve to believe in yourself for 6 years. And just lack of support. Like, nobody is going to go tell you to do that every day. You're going to have to tell yourself to do it. And in terms of the funding thing, most of the people I know who do this, they've either saved up a large nest egg to be able to pursue indie for a couple of years, or they were wealthy, or, you know, there's different paths, and some have got publishing contracts, but that's kind of the rarity right now. All right, portfolios. This is like, bar none, the biggest question that I get asked by anybody who is trying to figure this out and get into the industry, which I totally understand, although I will note that it's not the only thing to focus on. One misconception is that you have one big, beautiful portfolio and you show it to every single job that you go to. No, it has to be tailored to every project to really succeed. You know, picture you're doing a horror project that's on PC and it has a lot of really intensive branching. Sending them examples of your most popular or successful work, if it is mobile and cute and funny, and doesn't have any branching, it's not going to help them understand how you would fit into their project. So you really have to tailor it, even if you have not got those samples. Just generate them, and they don't have to be long because your portfolio shouldn't be long. So in that case, if you don't have a little horror sample, try to conceive of one, you know, and try to put it together. Or, you know, a branching, you don't have some examples of really in-depth branching, create a planning document of this would be the 37 endings to this game, and show that in the portfolio. I promise it'll have better results than showing published stuff that doesn't relate to what that person is looking for. In general, I do 3 entries. I think that's pretty standard. The other big tip is give context. So show your work and your ability to work with others by showing the behind the scenes content. I think you can see a little bit here from Kara Thrace's narrative portfolio about making a pinwheel game where you can commit arson, that you can see. I've put like an example game balancing sheet, a little clip of that. This kind of stuff is actually huge. This shows people that you understand the design part of narrative design and not just the writing part. And you want to give the context, show, okay, I'm a narrative designer on this project that I'm showing you. This was the assignment. These were the steps that I took. It's sort of like, you know, the annoying math homework. You have to show your work type thing. And lots of visuals, of course. As many as you can, because yeah, even people who their job is to read writing samples from writers don't want to do it. Everybody wants the easier, you know, more attention grabbing stuff. So, you know, plan for success in that way. Yeah, a couple of tips for different types of samples. For prose or screenwriting, provide your role and your goal, skip the behind the scenes, because people know what the behind the scenes is of writing a story. For Barks, definitely show more behind the scenes spreadsheet, and don't really worry necessarily about adding an in-game screenshot. If you do, that's a bonus, but that's okay. And planning documents are really underused sample type. So this is, again, like if you were planning out a game that had multiple endings or had some interesting mechanic to it, that's where you would want to show. And I think that would actually be very enticing to a lot of hiring people. writing tests. My palms are sweaty just reading writing tests. This is obviously the most awful part of the job. But these tips can help make things a little better, but I would say do not hang your ego on a writing test, because sometimes you can write something really good and it hits the wrong desk and it just doesn't connect. Definitely happened to me. With writing tests, do ask to be paid, because you have other things that you could be doing that would make you money, and you are taking a significant amount of time to do the test. I do this pretty much every time. It doesn't always work, of course, and then I have to evaluate, do I want to do this for free or not? Okay, that's fine. But if it does work, then you know that that collaborator is a good human being and a good studio and good person to work with. Even if it's a nominal amount of money, it's still better than nothing. And then in terms of writing tests, the success that I've found is through really thoroughly interviewing the studio on what they're looking for. So utilize some journalism skills there. Ask like, what's the tone? What really inspires you? Is there any like movie that you can think of that has really great dialogue? You know, this is for if you're talking to the person who's really going to evaluate your test. What are some pitfalls that the other narrative designers did that you'd say, you know, avoid? Sometimes you can just get all the answers, you know, just by asking questions. So don't think that it's a bonus if you don't ask questions and that they're going to be really proud of you for not asking questions. Ask the questions, get the answers, and then nail the test. And then, yeah, lastly, get someone more experienced to read it for you. Nobody ever asked me to do this, but I would be down. You can ask me. Networking. Okay, it's all terrible stuff. You know, I'm bringing up all scary stuff. Networking. I was totally afraid of this and not into networking for such a long time. But I think I have devised a little thing here. This is sort of a Teen Beat magazine style quiz about the type of networking that will be least soul crushing to you. So like, let's try it out just once because, you know, I made it. So I'll just like see thumbs up versus thumbs down, and that's how we'll go through it. All right. Do you like making friends via the internet? Yes or no? Thumbs up. Okay, a lot of thumbs up. I think more thumbs up. Well, actually, okay. Most people are giving this. That's why I'm so confused. Okay, well, let's just say yes. Do you prefer the camera to be off when you're making friends on the internet? Yes or no? Okay, mostly yes. All right. So yes was, do you even want to interact with humans at all? Yes or no? Okay, still mostly yes. All right. So in that case, I think doing online game jams and joining Discord groups is the best option. But as you can see, there's different options here, and we are going to go through all the answers. All right. So for those who can handle like prolonged periods of extroversion, it's conferences like GDC, NarraScope, Super Festival, Adventure X, Gamescom. Of course, there's varying degrees of size of all of those. And this one is a nice size for me. I could never do something like Gamescom. Tips here. Volunteer to defray costs. Hopefully you might bring some sort of emotional support person with you. Be safe and be gentle with yourself. Do not pack your schedule and actually expect to go to every single thing. Go home if you have a headache or wherever, you know, bunk that you're staying. And prioritize the depth of conversations over hitting everything on your schedule. Don't get distracted by the schedule. If you're really connecting with somebody, keep connecting with them. And then if you are extroverted, you want to meet people in person, but doing it all in one go in like a week seems a little overwhelming. That's when local scenes come into play. A lot of the ones that I have here are like co-working spaces such as Gumbo, Glitch City, but some of them are also just, and I think Spell Collective it as well, but some of them are just, you know, places that regularly meet. And if you look it up, I do have a post about this on Narrative News, actually. So I do have different ones from around the world. There are a lot of them out there. But if there isn't one near you, why not make one? You know, there's always game devs in every area. I come from a village of like 250 people, and there's like 3 people who professionally make games there. So, which is weird. But yeah, you can work into things slowly with these. You don't have to get to know everybody on the first day. If you go there regularly, you'll get to know people, which is really nice. Then, if you want to stay at home, online networking events like stuff that the GIG puts on, IGDA does a lot of this as well. They have a full program that I am an alumni of that is a sort of 1-month mentorship program where you also get to meet a cohort of fellow game devs. I always recommend this. A lot of people don't necessarily know about it. It is a very great free program. And online workshops and classes. So yeah, I mean, this one is pretty easy. You get to stay home. And again, just focus on quality of connections over quantity. Game jams, this is for the cameras off people. Game jams on itch.io are very frequent. They're usually 2 weeks long. Yes, people are actually looking for narrative designers to join their teams. And I know it from posting in Discords and everybody being like, I'll take a writer. But also don't be afraid to lead a team. You're also a designer. So absolutely do that. And then Discords, I don't know this one too well because I am not very good at keeping up on Discords, but there are great ones out there, including Anna McGill's narrative design Discord. So yeah, you just participate in discussions, there's live events, and every community is unique. So explore that. But if you are really, really antisocial, or, you know, maybe that's not the best term for it, but don't really like to invite people into your home, even on the internet, posting and publishing can be a way that people connect without having to constantly chat directly. Of course, I have my Narrative News newsletter. Some people are more about posting on Blue Sky or TikTok. It's about producing something interesting that will help your fellow community and doing it regularly, and engaging with people in your own time, basically. All right. Now to freelancing. Freelancing is a subject where it's kind of similar to the tests. You got to interview your client carefully to know what they're looking for. But I also have a few tips here just for contracts and how to navigate them that I received from people who are very wise. So charge by the project rather than by the hour, if possible. Sometimes that won't work, but the thing about this is that a quest could take a month or a day because creative work is kind of like that. So you just figure out their timelines, figure out what you need to be paid to cover your bills for the time you're dedicating to them, and you estimate, okay, this is what I think the project would cost. You can suggest short-term contracts while you're both getting to know one another. I say this because I've been in some really horrible writing freelancing situations where it's going south. And so you do want to put those protections in just to see, okay, well, maybe this is going to be a temporary thing. And the last one, very good point down here. Add a number of revisions included into the contract so that, you know, because otherwise a lot of people are just going to be like, unlimited revisions, excellent. And that doesn't work for anybody. So add a number, there's 4 revisions included. Past that, it's going to be extra. We're going to have to renegotiate the contract. But what about when you get this gig and you don't want to make mistakes, but you end up making a lot of mistakes, which I've been there. So biggest mistakes that I see are just not asking questions, thinking that asking fewer questions will make you seem more competent, but the reverse is absolutely true. Being in a rush, prioritizing fast turnarounds over quality. And even if you are a great writer, it's just knowing what your boss thinks mistakes are. Some are more obsessed with the quality of the prose. Some are more obsessed with the quality of your formatting. It's very, very functional like that. But make sure to get it right first before trying to speed up. And forgetting the fun, so you're in your head being like, I have to get across all these points and the plot, and then you do it, but it's very functional. It's like, hi, how are you? Are you going to the orange factory tomorrow? Because I hear it's going to close very soon. And that doesn't sound good, like you have to keep the panache and the flair and the humor. And so even if you start out with a very functional draft, go over it again, add back in that fun. But it's totally okay to start with a very functional draft. And then here's something that you can't really control when you have a bad boss. But the thing is, I've had many bosses and I've never had a perfect one, and I never will. And none of you will ever have a perfect boss either. Of course, some can be particularly bad, but here's a few things for troubleshooting. Maybe they don't like your writing style. Well, this is something that you'll probably have to get used to as a professional writer. I write like an old Victorian man, like it's in my soul, but I have to be more active because that's the current, way of writing. So just try asking more questions about the writing that inspires them and digging into what they don't like if you feel comfortable doing that. If they don't celebrate your successes, say, this is a scary one. If you do something well and other people in your company are saying, wow, good job, and your boss seems upset about that, okay, that's not good. Maybe they're a little weird about that. But you're just gonna have to be polite, clock out, and celebrate with your real friends. Although that's not a good situation. What if they're gaslighting you, just straight up saying things that aren't true? You got to start keeping detailed records of everything you do so that you can refute any false claims. That's not fun. Absolutely not fun. But for the moment, that's what you can do. Or they don't trust you yet. Instead of trying to take on big things, just deliver on the small things until they trust you with the big ones. But sometimes none of these tips will help, and you'll just have a very, very difficult relationship with your boss. Not everybody is meant to be a leader, and most of the people in management haven't really, prepared to be a good leader. In that case, sometimes all you can do is just vent to close friends and loved ones until you are able to get yourself out of that situation. If it is really murdering your soul, you're going to have to be able to find a way to get out of it. But I've been there and I feel for you. And you can always vent to me if you'd like. And here's another big question: a day in the life of a narrative designer. These are more made up documents that I've made. This is an example of a brief for the Jem'Hadar. And this is some dialogue between Mary Poppins and a really demonic Michael. And this is just, there's two parts to any given day in my life. It's meetings and work, and the meetings takes up half of the day. Boo! It's stand-ups, all hands, play tests, one-on-ones, brainstorms, writers' rooms. Writers' rooms, obviously, the most fun of those. And then part two is the work: briefs, bios, breakdowns, summaries, strings. And by strings, I mean like content like upgrade your champion in order to get to this. Sometimes they'll have you edit those. And dialogue, which is the meat and potatoes of the whole thing. And then you'll also usually have to do some implementation. I would say that this is only like 20% of my job, but you're going to have to be comfortable going into Unity or Unreal or custom tools. Nobody has ever asked me to be really good at it. They've just asked me to be comfortable with it. And I am. So, I sort of piece it together. They're not really asking you to be an engineer, so don't worry about that. All right, getting towards a sort of later part of the narrative design career, which is I'm not in yet. So this is why I got some advice from people that I know who are. And the question is about, do I still want to be an independent contributor or an IC, or do I want to move towards directorship? And I asked Chris Latoile, who is an amazing writer and still an IC. He has written most of Mass Effect 1 and 2. Amazing. Elder Scrolls Online. He's done writing in Outer Worlds as well. And, he just said, in my observations, the further up you get in the leadership hierarchy, the less time you have to spend on actual narrative tasks. And he likes to keep his hands dirty. That's totally reasonable. Manny Hagopian, who has been a narrative director for quite a while and has worked on Star Wars, Jedi Survivor, Apex Legends, Titanfall, says the same thing, but takes it from a different perspective. To be a director, a really good director, you have to put that thing you really, really enjoy aside and allow others to do it. So are you ready to sort of go into that parental role of teaching and guiding? And also the other benefits of being a director, of course. Or do you want to just keep doing that thing that you love? So there will be practical concerns either way, but I think that, it kind of sums things up. And it shows that either way, you can continue to have a very long career. Chris Latoile has been in games for, I think, 40, I don't know, I don't want to say 40 years, but like 30 years at least. So, yeah. And at that slightly anticlimactic moment. Thank you for listening. This is all the topics I could cram in there for now, and I think it might be over time anyway. Really appreciate you all being here, and I just want to say that NarraScope really gives me hope and inspires me at this time when there is so much AI buffoonery, to see people who love their craft and are dedicated to it. And I think people who will make this industry better alongside each other, whether it's through labor movements or just, community in general. So thank you very much. Follow me on LinkedIn or Substack. Thanks.
About 15 minutes for questions.
Oh, we do? Oh, yeah. Great. Okay. Yes.
So I have a question. So I've done a bit of narrative game writing, just a little bit, but all of the stuff that I worked on is under NDA. And I'm wondering, when I have personal indie projects as well. But I'm wondering, you said that not everything in your portfolio has to be published.
Yeah.
And you can just make a sample, but I'm wondering, how can I show something? I'm really proud of some things I did under NDA. Should I just make a replicating version that's serial numbers filed up for the portfolio, or what?
That's one thing you could do. The first thing I would do is ask the company that it's under NDA with if you would be able to share it with a prospective employer under a password encoded page or Google Drive spot. And then if they're not, then I think you're totally within your rights to kind of anonymize it, switch it up a little bit, and present it. Yeah, like you said, slightly replicated, but different. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So you talked a bit at the beginning about how you should be customizing our portfolio for every job we apply for. And the place where that's a struggle for me is that I keep my portfolio on my personal website.
Yes.
A lot of times I think I ask for it, so I'm just going to the website.
Yeah.
And so should I be changing stuff out on my website for each job I apply to?
You bring up a really good point. You should have one on your website with all the greatest hits for sure. And you don't have to change that up. I have one of those as well. But if they're just asking casually, can I get a link to your website? That's what you send them. But if they're saying, okay, we're in the middle of a application process, can I get your portfolio? What I have is just a kind of rotating Google Doc and I switch out the samples. So I send them the Google Doc link. I feel like there's two kind of things there, right? It's the more casual, look at what I've generally done, or the more in-depth, okay, I'm really preparing a portfolio for you specifically. And those ones you kind of want to specify, and you could just make them in Google Docs. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi. So to work on my own games of like slow stuff and something. It was like getting into like jobs or just narrative for other games. What kind of like things that I guess that's more general, like the like doing writing for another context, like journaling or like journalism kind of stuff, like transferable skills and other things you be writing, or is it just like writing from games and then like saying, hey, I wrote this stuff in my game, they're like, oh, that was good for us.
Okay. Yes, I know. Repeat the question. I know I messed that up. Okay, so the question was, I think, and you can confirm, can I use samples from my own game or from journalism or sort of unrelated things, or, you know, previous things that I've done into my portfolio, or just in general to show to people who are looking to hire someone?
Yeah, it's like what you think was most helpful when you're getting that stuff.
Right. Okay. So what was most helpful when I was sort of changing careers? And yeah. Okay. Well, actually, my journalism experience was extremely useful for me because when I started out in QA, which is where I started in games, it was because I had been an editor previously, and so I knew a lot of grammar stuff. And the studio that I was working for was Pixelberry Studio, and they were very narrative heavy. So they wanted their QA to know a lot about grammar and writing and flow. And so that was like a very direct one-to-one. So that did help a lot. And I think you do want to be able to sell those transferable skills. Sometimes it can feel a little cringe, but it just the things that I regret the most are when I haven't sold myself and I haven't sufficiently said, well, I do have this skill. It's just from a different, you know, past career. So I think it's very wise to like investigate what those things are and break them apart and see how it could apply to the games industry. And the more confidently that you sell it, that will certainly help you. I've never put any journalism pieces into my portfolio, however, because I don't think it would be relevant. Maybe if there was some sort of like game that had a lot of found objects in it, I would. But yeah, I've stuck mostly to game related stuff. Again, they do want to see that you have a knowledge of what the industry is like. But overall, when it comes to like interviewing and your CV, you should definitely point out those transferable skills. And I actually think the industry is pretty open to transfers from other industries. I've actually seen in some studios a preference for screenwriters, which I don't really agree with, but you know, yeah, there's definitely an openness to other industries, I think. Hey.
Great job.
Hey, thank you.
I have a question. So something from the other side, like that is hiring maybe a narrative designer or starting like a movie studio. How do we assess what's a good fit if we're not a narrative designer?
Yeah, I've been on the employer side before. Well, I think what I look for first of all is the quality of the prose, to see what level that is at, and that can come through honestly in a wide variety of samples. And then I kind of look to see if they have a real collaborative nature. So those are the two things that I would look for in a great narrative designer. And those can shine through in various different ways. Maybe it's through talking to them. Maybe it's through their samples. Maybe it's through a game jam that you've seen of theirs. So those are the two things that I look out for personally, is like, is their prose good? To me, as a writer, that's all I need to know. I know they'll be able to shift into various lanes. And, you know, are they a great person to work with? And so that part's a little more nebulous. And of course, that's the hardest part to decide when you're hiring somebody. But yeah, and then give them like give them a little time, especially if it's like a contractor, give them a little time to work into it. If the first revision is not what you want, just communicate, and then towards the end of the contract, you can see if it's still a fit or not. Does that sort of answer? Yeah. Yes.
If you're developing a sample for genre or type of gaming right now in your portfolio, do you have like a rough guideline for how much content you can produce, like that kind of content?
Yeah.
A bar sheet, like a summary, like a faction.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the reason I say generate from scratch is because it shouldn't be very long at all. And simply from the, fact that these people who are reviewing these, they don't take a lot of time on them. So, if it's just a few lines or, maybe, I don't know, like I'll come up with real numbers. Let's say like 10 to 15 barks of different varieties for one character, or a 2 to 3 page short story. I don't know if you'd want to do that. Or a sequence of dialogue that is one scene. So maybe like 1 to 2 pages. A branching twine that takes, forgetting how long a twine would translate from, like maybe like a 5-minute twine. I don't know, maybe a portion of a twine game, right? Yeah, I think just it's pretty concise. It's pretty concise. And because also you'll want to show, like I was saying before, some of the behind the scenes of how you made it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey.
Some people think that having their portfolio in Google Drive is a bit of a you found that to be true, they're better format.
Interesting. The question is, sorry, I once again messed up on not repeating the questions. That is having a portfolio in Google Drive an ick? Gosh, I mean, I try to make mine look good, but I don't think it matters all that much. I don't think that hiring people are expecting writers to be aesthetically brilliant, because we are often, let's face it, not. But yeah, so I've never had any problem with throwing it in because it's the most accessible. If I was a little more like up on my website, yeah, I would like make a bunch of pages and list them under different passwords. But I honestly think it's probably not worth it for the extra effort. And if with a Google Doc, you can turn it into a PDF really easily. Yeah, I try to make it look like at least clean and simple. But yeah, I don't think they're looking for that too much.
We'll take one more in-person question and
Okay.
we'll to Discord.
Yeah.
If you have something in line and you just put it in a Google Doc and just like show some screenshotting things, or would you actually just put the HTML?
I put it in, I put the pictures in because again, you just never when you're going to lose them, but a link can lose them. So I try to just embed as much stuff so that they don't have to go anywhere else. They just can scan it and go. And yeah, I just do also like, I don't know, this is a random tip, but I do kind of pageless format. So that's when it's just sort of this big expanse of like, canvas rather than like pages, because the pictures and the videos fit better that way.
Great. And then from Jared on Discord asks, how did you move from a content designer to a narrative designer for Superblue?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, that's a big jump. I know. That one was a bit of luck and a bit of previous experience. So the job where I became a narrative designer was for a very similar game as what I had worked on as a content designer. And content design, you do write a fair amount generally. I mean, it's sort of like producing the content of a level. It really varies between games, but you're generally going to write some text. But also the person hiring me knew that I had been a journalist previously and that I had worked on a very narrative-driven game as a QA tester. And she took all those things together and she was like, okay, perfect. This is what we need for, this role. And that's where I first got the title narrative designer. I knew it was a big break because just to get the title is a great stepping stone. So yeah, a little bit of luck and a little bit of creating those prior circumstances. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much.
All right.